Straight ahead on the Good Morning Show, he's out on bond and apparently sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what could be next for George Zimmerman now? We'll tell you next.
I'll say the latest in the case of a man accused of killing a 92-year-old Gadsden County woman.
And a Big Bend man says that he was threatened by a law enforcement officer. We've got those stories and more just ahead. But first, here's Rob Nucatola with a check of our weather.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. All clear on the live megawatt Doppler radar screen. We are starting to get some more of that fog forming in more areas this morning. Numbers climbing from the 50s to a near 90 today. We did hit 90 yesterday. No reason we don't get awfully close again in our inland sections again today. And I think each day this weekend, the numbers that start with a 9 are a likelihood. We're going to talk about this warm weather, this dry weather, and when it's going to change in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's get some news.
Thank you, Rob. We begin this morning with some breaking news. Earlier this morning, we learned about an accident that took place in Madison County on I-10 near the Greenville exit.
And at this time, we know at least one person has been ejected from a vehicle and there is at least one fatality. FHP is on the scene and we will keep you updated as the story unfolds.
Well, George Zimmerman's attorney makes a bombshell discovery. His client is sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Zimmerman's facing second-degree murder charges for shooting an unarmed teen, Trayvon Martin, and is out on bond. Now, could this have an impact on his freedom? Shelby Lynn has more.
He asked me what to do with his PayPal accounts, and he said those were the accounts that had the money from the website he had, and that there was about $204,000 that had come in to date.
George Zimmerman's attorney, Mark O'Mara, on CNN with Anderson Cooper. O'Mara says he learned Wednesday of the more than $200,000 in donations raised online from Zimmerman's website. Since that time, the site has been taken down.
I don't think Judge Lester is going to believe that I misled them. I told them what I knew at the time.
At the time, O'Mara says Zimmerman told him he was broke. Zimmerman was released from jail Monday after raising 10% of his $150,000 bail. Criminal defense attorney Mark Garagos says this money discovery could put Zimmerman back behind bars.
If you've got more money stashed in an account that basically you didn't earn, somebody just gave it to you, and you could just pay the bond and be gone, that gives a lot of judges concern.
Zimmerman's lawyer says the money is now in a secure account no one can access.
Everybody's singing.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson brought up the issue at a Trayvon Martin rally in Los Angeles Thursday.
On the witness stand the other day and was able to say to the judge he was destitute and poor.
That seemed to spur donations for a fund the Martin family set up in Trayvon's name. His father, Tracy, says the outpouring means a lot.
One of the things that's actually keeping us going as a family is the support that we're getting from all over.
I'm Shelby Lynn reporting.
And Zimmerman's hearing is set for this morning. And Florida Governor Rick Scott must decide whether he wants to let two major universities raise tuition higher than what is currently allowed. Today, Scott is expected to either sign or veto a bill that would let the University of Florida and Florida State University increase tuition rates above the current 15% a year cap. Earlier this week, Scott remained undecided on the bill, and supporters of the bill contend that the extra tuition money will allow UF and FSU to compete nationally with other well-known public universities in North Carolina, Virginia, and Michigan. And we will let you know the fate on that bill this evening on Eyewitness News.
Well, the pretrial hearing for the man accused of killing a 92-year-old woman in Gadsden County was held on Thursday. Kevin Johnson's accused of killing Eunice Sonny Lester in Quincy. He did not enter a plea. Jury selection is slated for 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, April the 30th, and the trial could begin as early as Tuesday if a jury is chosen by then. The court clerk expects the trial to last all week. A former statewide prosecutor has filed to run against State Attorney Willie Meggs. Well, Peter Williams was a special prosecutor for Governor Christ and more recently served as an inspector general at 2 state agencies. He says that Meggs has been state attorney too long and his office has suffered.
Because the record I see is a record of unequal justice, of prosecutions that are botched or are partisan when the office should not be partisan.
And Williams says he intends to address high turnover in the office and restore civility and respect among lawyers, victims, and defendants. Meggs is seeking his 8th term in office. He stands by his record and a 70+% conviction rate over the last 4 years.
Well, a Tallahassee man claims he was threatened to make a campaign contribution by a member of the Leon County Sheriff's Office. Carl Martin says Deputy Jerry Schuler approached him at the Tallahassee flea market. Martin says Schuler asked him to donate to Larry Campbell's re-election campaign. And when Martin said no, he says Schuler then reminded him that his wife and daughter work for the sheriff's office.
He said, well, you know you got people working in the sheriff's department. And he let it go. That was it. That was the last of it.
And Martin filed an elections complaint on Wednesday afternoon. In response to that, the Sheriff's Department released this statement saying, "We have received the complaint. It is being reviewed at this time so that it can be handled appropriately. The actions alleged in this complaint, if determined to be factual, are not endorsed or sanctioned by Sheriff Larry Campbell or Sheriff Campbell's campaign."
Well, the FAMU Marching 100 band director, who was forced to temporarily step down, was honored by another band on Thursday. The FAMU DRS band honored Dr. Julian White during its second annual band extravaganza. White was placed on administrative leave from the Marching 100 after the hazing death of Robert Champion. He has since been officially reinstated, but is on administrative leave. Well, last night, the 30-person band played an array of songs ranging from classical ensembles to jazz and R&B. Well, if you've been following our WCTV boot campers, then you know that 4 of our on-air personalities have taken on a challenge to get fit fast.
That's right. Shonda Knight, Deneige Broom, Sam Lane, and Jackie Slater will be battling the bulge as well as each other. And we now go to Eyewitness News reporter Lindsay Day at Gold's Gym. Lindsay.
Hey, Art and Gina, and good morning, everyone. Our very own WCTV boot camper, Jackie Slater, is joining me this morning to tell us what she's been doing, both to reach her personal goals and to beat out those other boot campers, right?
That's right. Gotta try.
You're doing good. So tell us what your diet used to be like before you started this.
You know, I don't think I had a particularly bad diet. I think one of my weaknesses was dining out and not realizing what the calorie content is in some of the dishes. I'm definitely craving salty foods. I used to say that I have a sweet tooth, but I really don't think I do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like my sweets, but I think it's definitely more the salty foods and like pastas and breads and things like that.
Okay, so we won't think about those anymore. We'll think about all the good stuff now. So I understand you went on a little excursion with your trainer.
Yeah.
You went shopping with her for food and you learned some stuff. What did you learn?
Well, we went to Fresh Market. I had actually never been in there before. And one of the we talked about good carbs versus bad carbs, brown rice, whole grains instead of white rice, or a sweet potato is a better option than a baked potato or anything. Basically just stay away from white. Bleached foods, not good. The other thing we talked about is just how to prepare your meats to keep them lean and keep them healthy. That was enlightening to me. But really the main thing is just the carbs. I think when we diet, we're so afraid of them, we want to just stay away. And that's not really what you should do. What I'm learning is you need to put them in all of your meals.
That's right. You need that energy from the carbs. Yes. Okay. Well, time for one more question. I guess out of this whole experience, what have you learned the most? What would you tell with other people?
I think if you're nervous about doing it, if you need to lose that last 10 pounds or last 5 pounds, I would say, you know, a really good quick diet. My calories are really, really low. That's the way to lose, you know, the weight, and a great workout plan, which we'll talk about later, but just a good balance of diet and exercise.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere because we're coming right back with some workout tips. Live in Tallahassee, Lindsay Day, WCTV Eyewitness News. Back to you in the studio.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lindsay. And they're just getting started, right?
They are motivating me. I feel like I need to be like on a treadmill
And I like
doing the
they're all
news this
talking
morning.
a little smack.
We
with
are
each
on a
other, by the way.
treadmill.
We
work
are
here
on
now.
a treadmill. That's
Just
true.
kidding, just kidding. All right, well, we got to...
Straight ahead on the Good Morning Show, a man who was on America's Most Wanted list is in custody this morning after authorities found him residing right here in the Big Bend. Straight ahead on the Good Morning Show, reports that a Chinese dissident has taken refuge in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing has many in Washington on edge.
Plus, a body that was found in the Apalachicola National Forest is still shrouded in mystery.
And a domestic dispute leads to a shootout. We've got those stories and more coming up, but first, here's Rob Nucatola with a check of the weather.
Well, good morning, everybody. Live megawatt Doppler radar screen. All clear, all quiet for now. Maybe a little bit later this week, Wednesday, Thursday. Likely to see this guy start to light up. That's important. We need some rain. I think it's a couple of days until we get some. Day planner for today shows plenty of sunshine, a couple puffy white clouds, and warm temperatures. Numbers climbing from the upper 60s in many spots this morning to at least the lower 90s away from the coast this afternoon. We're going to talk hot, hot, hot for another couple of days. The full breakdown in just a few minutes. First, let's get some news.
Thank you, Rob. A Chinese human rights activist who has escaped house arrest is now reportedly in U.S. custody.
Chen Guangcheng was being held for his role in exposing forced abortions and sterilizations as a result of China's one-child policy. Whit Johnson has more on the U.S. role in the case.
Following reports that the Chinese dissident has taken refuge in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, State Department spokeswoman Victoria Nuland remained firm.
I don't have anything for you on that subject.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
The case has become extremely sensitive ahead of the annual meeting between the U.S. and China. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner are expected to begin talks Thursday, centering on trade, the economy, and nuclear tensions with North Korea and Iran. Chen will be the elephant in the room, and reportedly some U.S. officials have departed early to negotiate his fate.
We're going to make sure that we do this in the appropriate way.
Today, White House counterterrorism advisor John Brennan stressed the importance of improving U.S.-China relations.
I'm not going to address the issue of Mr. Chen right now. We are working very closely with the individuals involved in this, and so I'm going to leave it to others in the U.S. government who have responsibility for it.
Negotiating Chen's release will be difficult for both countries, with the administration hoping to avoid accusations of caving on human rights, and the Chinese fearing too many concessions may embolden other activists.
I think that the U.S. is not in a position to require that the Chinese treat him well if he leaves the U.S. Embassy. The best we can hope for is to negotiate safe passage to the airport and exit from the country.
The matter is only further complicated with the U.S. holding a presidential election in November and China also poised for a leadership transition in October. Both sides want to focus on their economies and avoid an embarrassing outcome. Wakulla County deputies are still trying to figure out how a man ended up dead in a national forest. The man's body was found Friday inside the Apalachicola forest, and deputies spotted the body after firefighters were called out to the woods for a car fire. Deputies have not released the man's name or the results from Saturday's autopsy.
A 25-year-old is dead after a fatal car crash early Sunday morning. FHP officials say that Brooks Breslin was driving north on Centerville Road near Brim Lane. They say that Breslin's car veered off the road and then swerved between lanes before colliding head-on with a tree. It all happened around 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Troopers pronounced Breslin dead at the scene. Another crash on Saturday night left one man dead. 27-year-old Preston Michael Myers of Bristol, Florida, was traveling northbound on Cook's Landing Road in Gaston County. He was driving a Toyota RAV4 when he drove off of the road. Myers' vehicle overturned after colliding with several trees. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police are still investigating the cause of that accident.
A domestic dispute led to a shootout with officers in Florida last night, and it started near the airport in Daytona Beach, Florida, and ended a few miles away. Police were called to investigate a man with a gun outside the airport terminal. When they arrived, the man sped off in his car. Police say when they caught up to him, he fired several shots at officers, and one officer hit the suspect with his cruiser. And when the suspect still tried to run, officers shot at him. The man's wife was found shot in the front seat of his car, and she is hospitalized in serious condition. The suspect was also taken to the hospital. Florida is currently home to 11 state-run universities, and that means hundreds of buildings have to be maintained.
Well, that upkeep does not come cheaply. In fact, experts estimate the cost to be hundreds of millions of dollars. And Eyewitness News reporter Lindsay Day joins us live now from FSU in Tallahassee with a look at how a budget shortfall could impact campus.
Hey, Art and Gina. Good morning, everyone. Well, get this. It turns out that it takes between $200 and $400 million to maintain and modernize state university buildings across the state of Florida. Now, that includes buildings like this lovely Turnbull Center that I'm standing in right now. Now, this is all according to national norms that evaluate factors such as square footage college and age. Unfortunately, for fiscal year 2012-2013, total appropriations for this purpose were less than $9 million to be shared across the system. Overall, PICO, or Public Education Capital Outlay funding, in the state university system is now at a historic low. A bill that would have altered the way PICO projects are funded by providing some flexibility to universities failed to pass in the final days of the 2012 session. The Senate also conducted important research on potential PICO alternatives in 2011, but its final report was not released in the most recent session. Now, by law, PICO funds cannot be used to construct student life facilities such as student unions, recreational fields, and fitness centers. But according to a study conducted by the Florida Board of Governors, there is more than $650 million of unmet and identified needs for student life facilities alone. But again, remember that PICO funds cannot be utilized for this purpose, and the $650 million needed cannot be bonded. It's this critical lack of infrastructure and facilities funding that the Board of Governors' newly formed 12-member task force on facilities funding will address over the next 2 days in Orlando. Robert Bradley, FSU's very own Vice President for Planning and Programs, was recently appointed to the task force. Stick around because coming up at 6:30, I'll tell you what this task force has been tasked to accomplish just this week. Live in Tallahassee, Lindsay Day, WCTV Eyewitness News. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Well, the city of Valdosta is under a water restriction right now. Citizens are urged to conserve water by not watering their lawns and doing things like taking shorter showers. Valdosta's water treatment plant is battling mechanical issues with its pumps. The city officials hope to lift that restriction today, but residents are already watching their water use.
Yes, I think it's very important, to try to cut back on the water, not to wash too many cars at one time, take quicker showers.
And city officials want everyone to know that the water is safe to drink.
Important to know.
I know this is one of your pet peeves is water conservation and making sure people water their grass at the right time of the day.
Right times of the day.
Yeah.
Middle of the day just evaporates, no good.
Yeah, best to do it kind of early morning hours there and kind of, when you're done by the time the heat of the day hits. So,
that's right.
I'm glad you have this on the desk here because I want to point something out. Today is National Hairstyle Appreciation Day.
Well, that's why I brought it up here.
That's why you brought it up here.
It came because I'm having a crazy hair day on a Monday, but also for Rob to use as a prop.
That's good. Yeah, National Hairstyle Appreciation Day and National Honesty Day. And honestly, I'm happy I still have hair to style.
So just one day a year we'd be honest?
Art, it's sitting right there in case you need to use some hairspray throughout the show.
I think I'm good. I got my white rain, man. It's like a legal helmet in Georgia.
He's on it. We've got weather to talk about, my friends. Things are hot and staying that way. Details forecast next.
Keep your hairspray handy.
A man learns his fate after pleading guilty to the murder of a 92-year-old Gadsden County woman.
And May is National Bicycle Month, and coming up, we'll take a look at what that means for the Big Bend. But first, here's Rob Nucatola with a check on our weather.
Well, good morning, everybody. Live megawatt Doppler radar screen doesn't have a whole lot to show us. Probably not going to today. Hopefully, it has something to show us tomorrow. Though those rain chances that looked a little bit bigger yesterday, getting a little smaller for today and tomorrow. Let's take a look at the day planner. A little bit of fog to get out there early this morning, and numbers high, 60s and 70s to get going. We'll climb into the 90s again. 95 is the record for today. I don't think we get that high, but I think we can get close. We'll have the full breakdown in just a couple of minutes. First, let's get some news.
All right, thanks, Rob. Well, an America's most wanted suspect who's been on the run for nearly 30 years is now behind bars.
Right, as Eyewitness News reporter Garen Flowers tells us, the man was living in our area and had his neighbors fooled.
He was wanted in Madison County after being investigated for insurance fraud. On Friday, sheriff deputies arrested this man under the name R.M. Haleen, but they knew there was something more than unusual about him.
We knew he was running from something, but was just trying to figure out what it was.
Deputies say they were already at the suspect's house when he started to pull in. They asked for his driver's identification. He didn't have it, so they arrested him.
We checked several times through different Social Security numbers that he gave us, and at that point it was determined he was trying to hide his identity.
They ran his fingerprints, and his name came out as Charles Parker, a man wanted by U.S. Marshals.
Don't miss an all-new.
He was also featured on America's Most Wanted. Deputies say Parker has an outstanding warrant from Douglas County, Georgia, for child molestation and incest. LaShada Edwards lives in Greenville, Florida. Parker was her landlord.
His wife friendly, he friendly, but
You'd be surprised about people after you find them out.
Now she and other neighbors are shocked by the man next door.
I would be scared to take my kids around, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing now.
Deputies took Parker to the Madison County Jail Friday. U.S. Marshals picked him up early Monday. In Madison County, Garen Flowers, WCTV, Eyewitness News.
We spoke to several of Parker's tenants. They say they had no clue what they are going to do when it's time to pay the rent.
A Suwannee County man is found dead by his family over the weekend. Here's what we know right now. Deputies responded to the scene in Suwannee County around 7 Sunday night. And they found 49-year-old Charles Napier with multiple gunshot wounds. His death is being ruled a homicide. His body is now in the medical examiner's office, and we are waiting for autopsy results. Napier worked as a hairdresser at the Atlantis Hair Salon in Live Oak.
Well, a man gets 2 life sentences for the brutal, fatal beating of an elderly woman. Monday, during day 1 of jury selection in his trial, Kevin Johnson pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and other charges in the death of 92-year-old Eunice Sonny Lester. In 2010, deputies say that Johnson carjacked Lester, beat her up, and left her for dead in her Gadsden County driveway. Lester was in a coma for weeks before she died. Johnson was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 30 years on a separate charge. An attempted murder suspect has posted bond now. Madison County deputies arrested Antoine Miller last Tuesday for stabbing another man at a Greenville club. The victim is still recovering from injuries and is expected to be okay. Madison County clerk officials say they do not know a timeline for Miller's next appearance before a judge. We'll follow this story and keep you up to date.
An independent task force is calling for major changes, but not a repeal on Florida's Stand Your Ground law. The law has been in the spotlight since the Trayvon Martin shooting. And State Senator Chris Smith, who organized a panel of legal experts to look at the state's Stand Your Ground law, delivered recommendations to Governor Rick Scott and legislative leaders Monday afternoon. He released this list one day before the governor's panel is scheduled to hold its first meeting. Senator Smith says the group, which includes prosecutors and defense attorneys, could not agree on whether to repeal the law.
A judge has refused to block the use of the Republican-led legislature's congressional redistricting map for this year's elections. The ruling came on Monday, shortly after the Justice Department approved the congressional map as well as redistricting plans for the State House and Senate. Circuit Judge Terry Lewis wrote that the new congressional map appears to be an improvement over the existing plan that passed about 10 years ago, so it should be used until the challenge is resolved. Democrats and other opponents say the map violates new anti-gerrymandering standards. Well, during the month of May, the capital city's cycling community has several exciting events that are planned in recognition of National Bike Month.
So May 1st seems to be the perfect time to take a closer look at some interesting statistics recently released by the U.S. Census Bureau. And Eyewitness News reporter Lindsay Day joins us now live from downtown Tallahassee with those stats. Lindsay.
Hey, Art and Gina. Good morning, everyone. The American Census Bureau releases an American survey just about every year. Now, for the 3rd year in a row, it showed that just over half of 1% of American workers prefer to use their bicycle as their primary means of transportation to get to work. Now, even though this does represent a nearly 40% increase since 2000, it also shows that we still have a lot of work to do in making our communities truly welcoming to bicyclists. The League's Bicycle Friendly America program studied cycling communities in 70 of the country's largest cities. What they found was that the communities that have done the most to promote bicycling through engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation have seen much greater increases in bike commuting over the past decade than non-bicycle friendly communities. Now, since 2005, the 38 friendly communities among the 70 largest cities saw a 95% average increase in bicycle commuting. Now, in contrast, the 32 non-bicycle friendly communities grew only 46%. Since 2000, large bicycle friendly communities grew about 78%. Stick around because for all of you cyclists or potential cyclists, I'll have a little bit of advice for you on how you can ride safer and better at 6:30. Live in Tallahassee, Lindsay Day, WCTV Eyewitness News. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate that update there for you. National Bike Month.
Yes.
And I tell you what.
Do you ride bike?
Occasionally, not very often.
I'm more the beach cruiser kind of girl.
I've got a nice
if I'm
bike, but
by a beach,
not very often.
beach cruise it.
Tell you, We have skipped right past spring here, so I mean, if you missed it, you know, now's, I don't know. If
It was
you wanna
nice
get
when we had it.
95 and riding
nice.
your bike. Is
It would have been
not-
nice to ride bike in the spring, but we really didn't have
Didn't
one.
have one.
So
We
maybe
blame-
wait till next year.
We blame you.
That's okay, you can blame me. It's nothing new. We do have more hot to talk about. I wish I was talking about rain chances and cooler temperatures. That's looking less and less likely, and more of the heat is looking more and more likely. We'll break it down coming up next.
Big parade tonight, right?
Sure do, and the weather's going to be just fine. No worries about that. We're talking, you know, the biggest problem going to be, honestly, driving to Thomasville, the love bugs are ridiculous.
Yeah, they are.
Ridiculous. But we've got some really nice weather for all of your outdoor weekend plans, whether that be attending a golf tournament, going to a parade, or graduating college. Everything looks good. We'll break it down. Kind of warm, but good. Next.